is Trinisha Cottrell, and welcome to First Love Yourself, where love, life, and Christ combine. Today, we're going to talk about obedience. But before we get started, if you're new here, go ahead and give me a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel so you never miss out on more uplifting and empowering content like this. So get comfortable because we are about to get into it. Let's go. Okay, so earlier today I'm reading Acts 1, and man, when I tell you the revelations was coming, they was coming. I was like, God, can you give me a message? Because I'm feeling like I don't have direction in my life. And that's just me being completely transparent. I was like, God, I really don't know where I'm going or what the next step is for my life. Like, what is it that you want me to do? Because I want to make sure I'm not arrogant in this season. And I hope that you are doing the same thing. I hope that when you're going through your life, you're asking God what it is that He needs for you to do in your life instead of thinking like, I need this, I need that. Really thinking, okay, God, how can you bless me so that I can help somebody else? And as I'm reading Acts 1, it's starting to go through and it's talking about Judas Iscariot betraying Jesus and how he was gone, like, intestines and everything. Sorry, I'm gonna have to put a little PSA out there or whatever. Like, don't watch this if you like got a weak stomach or whatever. But but he was gone because he was disobedient. He didn't want to listen. He wanted to go sell Jesus to the people just so he can get some land, and then didn't even like get to keep the land because he couldn't live with himself. And I feel like that's how we are in life. Sometimes we make decisions and we don't think about the repercussions of our actions. And then after that, the apostles have to find somebody to replace them, because if you're not going to be about God's business, if you're not going to do what God is telling you to do, then He gonna replace you with somebody else. That's basically what I took from the lesson. I was like, oh, I gotta get my affairs in order because obviously I gotta get it together. And so I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, they got two choices. They have a choice between this one guy or this other guy who can be an apostle to replace, or a disciple to replace Judas Iscariot. And they go with this one guy, and it really showed me how sometimes we can have options. We have this job or this job, and we're like, oh, well, since this job became available, let me take this opportunity because obviously it's gotta be God. And the whole time God's like not saying that that's for you. He's saying that that's just an available opportunity. That does not mean it's grace for you. That does not mean it's a blessing from God for your life. That could be a trap by the adversary. Like, but we be so beside ourselves and thinking that everything is for us because it wants us. Like, it doesn't matter if that guy wants you or not. If it's not aligned with God, then you got to let it go. Because let me tell you something. What I learned from reading Acts 1 is that it doesn't matter how many options you have. If it's not aligned with God, it's not going to be the right choice. Even when you have options, when you choose God, that is so mature of you in faith. That means you like up here. You're not a baby Christian now. You real mature in your faith when you really have other options and you still choose Jesus regardless. And so as I was going through this, I was trying to think, okay, God, how can I get direction in my life? What is something that I can do that will help your people so that we can really get it together? So that even when we have choices, we still choose you. Even when we don't know where we're going, we still have faith. And a couple things came to mind. The first thing is obedience. I know some people don't want to hear that. You clicked off right then because you said, hold on, I thought this wasn't going to be work, but we got to put in that work the same way we did in the world. And so as you are going through life, I think it's important to remember that obedience is more important than anything else to God. When we're going through life, when we got options, when things are happening around us, it's important for us to say, okay, God, what is it that you want for us in our lives? Do you want me to take this job or not? Like, do you want me to be in this relationship, or is this relationship not for me? Do you want me to be friends with this person, or are you saying that these people are not aligned with the things that you have for my future? Because sometimes it's not that people are bad, it's that they're not aligned with your purpose. That's why it's so important to know what your purpose is so that way you're going in the right direction. And obedience will help lead you that the right way. The second thing, looking down because I got notes, is boundaries. Sometimes we lose direction because we have no boundaries. You ready to let anybody in your life? You ready to just accept any friendship, any job, any opportunity, as long as it comes to you? It's like, I gotta have it because it's gotta be God, right? There's no way I could have this amazing job making six figures and God's not in it. But if God is saying it's not in position with your purpose, then it's not aligned with God. We have to know that we know that we know that we get our direction from our boundaries. When you're rejected by somebody, I know you want to think, oh my gosh, that guy broke my heart. But the whole time is redirection. The whole time God's saying, I ain't never had that for you in the first place. The job didn't want you because it wasn't the job for you. The guy didn't want you because it wasn't the guy that was grace for you. Not that they're bad people. And that's something that I think we as Christians sometimes forget, is that it doesn't necessarily mean that somebody is a bad, evil, like cruel person, like who's just like the villain or something like that. It just means that they're not grace for you. You might not be grace for that person. And it's important for us to remember that when we're going through life, when God is telling us to do stuff, it's because He sees everything. We only see this part right now where we're at. We see us struggling or heartbroken or crying or whatever's going on in your life. And we forget that God has more for us. We forget that maybe He didn't want you to take that 6-figure job because He's going to have you making 7 figures in your business. Maybe He didn't want you to be with the person who's going to treat you badly or treat you okay right now, because in the future He not going to know how to treat you or handle you being in your purpose or being more successful. He could say that this person's not for you because that's somebody else's husband, that's somebody else's wife, and the whole time you feeling some type of way when God got this person for you who's so grace for you. They know exactly what it is that you need. Like, you could tell they're sent by God because they're aligned. Their purpose is aligned with yours. The things that they want for their life is aligned with what you want for your life. Everything just syncs up so perfectly. And I always used to say this before, like when I was first out here being single. And then even to this point, I know for a fact that God would never, ever, He would never, ever have you out here looking crazy. He would make sure that everything that you're doing is for a purpose, and the love story that God writes is better than any story that you can write for yourself. I know we think we done seen every romantic comedy movie. We done read every single romantic novel, or we done seen what we envision of our life as couple goals or whatever you want to call it. But that couple goal is not your life. God's goal for your life is your life. The person God has for you is the goal for your life. And it's important for us to remember that while we are trying to write our own story, that God knows the beginning and the end. He's the Alpha and the Omega. And sometimes get so we get so in our head that we forget that God already got this. He got this. Like, we be worried thinking He like other people, and the whole time God is really omnipotent. He's omnipresent. He knows everything. He knows your heart. He sees you crying when you get heartbroken and when you don't get that job that you prayed that you could get because your bills is piling up. He saw the guy treat you badly. He saw the woman dog you out. He saw everything, and He's going to use it for your purpose. You're thinking that it's unnecessary. You're thinking, oh my gosh, but that guy was so great. Everybody thought he was so amazing, but he's not grace for you. It doesn't matter what everybody else thinks. It matters that you have to live with him. And you don't know what it was going to come out later. And I'm not saying it would have been bad. It would have just been something that probably would have drove you crazy. There's this one woman that I know. I'm going to tell a quick story, and then I'm getting to the last and final point. But there's this woman, and there's this woman that I know, and she has this amazing relationship, and people around her are always like, oh my gosh, couple goals, they got the best relationship in the world. And the guy is busy, he's got stuff going on in his life. She is the type of woman who is so content with being able to just live her life. Yes, she wants to spend time with the guy, but also she's she's grace for him. She knows exactly what it is that he needs. He knows what it is that she needs. They give each other enough space because that's something that works for them. But you might be the type of person who likes to be around the person a lot. It might work for you to be around them more because you might be working with your partner. There might be other stuff that God has for you, and sometimes we start to covet other things because it looks good. But just because it looks good does not mean it's grace for us. Just because that guy looked like he stepped off the GQ magazine, sorry, not trying to drop names, does not mean that he's for you. Just because you thinking God said. But let me tell you something. Anything that God said is not going to make you feel restless. It's not going to make you feel frantic, or it's not going to make you feel uneasy. It's going to bring complete contentment in your life. It's going to bring peace that surpasses all understanding. So if God said that's your husband and you're driving yourself crazy, obviously that's Satan. So God would never have you going crazy over some man or turning him into your idol. God will never tell you that's your wife and she married somebody else. Like, you gotta let that go. I'm sorry. I know it hurts. I know you were thinking that you really heard from God. But when God tells you something, it's gonna be clear. It might not be a complete yes and do all of these things like we in improv. It might be like God is telling you, okay, do this, and you feel contentment. You might be afraid. Don't worry. Sometimes it gets a little scary, but it's better to have the fear of God than to make a mistake in the world. And I'm here with you. I'm not just sitting here on some high horse looking down at you like, oh my gosh, you don't want to just do everything in obedience. No, I be struggling sometimes too. And that's just me being real. I would love to be able to just be obedient without being scared, but it's so uncomfortable being obedient to God because he won't let you just sit still in an area that he does not have purpose for you. He will make sure you get a little uncomfortable so that you will start moving towards your purpose. And the last and final thing is to make a choice. Just like I was saying that they had other options, it's important for us to make a choice and let God choose for you. They prayed about the guy that they were selecting. They didn't just say, we got two choices, eeny, meeny, miny, mo. They said, we got two choices, God, which one do you want to disciple with us? Which guy do you think is going to be better for this position? As we go out and spread the gospel, as we tell others about your word, as we tell others about the death of Jesus for our sins, as we start to tell others and prophesy and really tell them about the things that can happen in their future. What is it that you want for our life? And God helped them choose the person. When you're going through something in your life, when you have to make a difficult decision, take it to God. Let God choose for you. You are not in this alone. One of the things that really holds me up so much is that I'll be thinking that I'm by myself. I'll be feeling like, oh my gosh, I gotta go through this alone. I gotta feel this heartbreak alone. I gotta try to figure out all these things by myself. And the whole time, all I had to do was stop and pray and listen to God for direction. The whole time, I just needed to take a moment and breathe. Like, as long as you got breath in your body, take a moment, pause, and breathe. Pray about it. Meditate on the word, meditate on the prayer, and listen for God's direction so He can help you make the choice that's aligned with Him. That's all you have to do. We worry so much about the world when really we should be focused on God. And I know people don't want to say that, they might not want to hear it, but I can tell you completely, like, when I put my complete faith and hope in God, that's the moment that I feel the most contentment. Sometimes I get so afraid that I really be feeling like, oh my gosh. I really be feeling like, oh my gosh, God, I don't know. I just don't know if I got enough strength to do it. And the other morning I was struggling with something and the Bible fell right in front of me. And I'm not trying to creep you out or anything, but the Bible fell right in front of me. And as I opened the Bible, it gave me the answer to the question that I had for God. He told me that I was stronger than I thought that I was. And I remember hearing that before. And even if you are not strong, know that God can be your strength and your weakness. If you are ever struggling with anything, turn to Him. Ask Him to provide people in your life who are going to help you, but say it in your mind. Don't say it out loud because the enemy can hear your prayers as well. Make sure that when you are really trying to discern if this guy, this job, this thing is for you, that you take it to God and you meditate on it. You fast, and I say through medical professional, you make sure that your health is up to par, because do not fast if you got a bunch of health conditions and you know that that's not something that you are able to do. Maybe you fast from something else, but the true definition of fasting. And I just think that it's so important for us as the world gets more hectic, as we see things changing, as we see like our leaders and maybe supervisors or whatever else, It's important for you to pray for them, like they were saying in church, because if you feel like you're under attack, imagine how a preacher feels. Imagine how somebody who's trying to lead a nation feels. Imagine how people who, in whatever position it is that they're in, how they are feeling, the pressure, the spiritual warfare, everything that's coming against them. And I really hope and pray that every single person watching this video finds direction in their life and you get your direction from God. Always know that you can turn to Him no matter how small or how big it is. You can always come to Him and He will always hear you. He said, as your shepherd, that He hears your voice and you can come running to Him. He said, if my people who are called by my name would humble themselves and pray, seek my face, turn from their wicked ways, I will forgive their sins and heal their land. He's saying that if He's for you, He's more than the whole world against you. And I don't know about you, but when I'm struggling, sometimes I forget those words. And I hope that those words helped you in this moment. As you're struggling, as you're trying to find peace, know that peace comes from God. You can't get that from the world. I done tried everything. Like I was, man, before I knew God, before I really knew God, I was really looking for everything to try to fulfill a space that only God can fill. And if I'm telling you, if you are looking for something that will truly fulfill you, I mean, overflow you, like you think you done got a full off of a meal, like there's no meal like the bread of life. There's nothing that will thirst or quench like drinking from the well that never runs dry. It's like, I know you hear all of these little cliche, biblical scriptures and verses and things of that sort, but there is nothing like the word in the presence of God. I promise you that. I hear people say like these little, I keep saying little, but people, and it's nothing little about God. I promise you that. I hear people say something that sounds cliche, you know, and it's so funny because when you know God, it's like, oh my gosh, you be starting to tear up. You be like, God is just so good, because He really is. Even when I don't understand, even when I'm confused, even when it doesn't make any sense to me, even though when I don't feel like I know everything, God is still good. And I'm gonna always say that. No matter if I have been disobedient for a little bit, no matter if you are going through a struggle in your life, no matter if you're everything seems like it's falling apart, I promise you that you will find peace in God. I promise you that everything will be okay. And I promise you that you will get direction if you seek first the kingdom of God and His righteousness. Everything that you desire will be given unto you because your desires will be His desires. So remember that and remember to love yourself. Bye.